Hello everyone, welcome to Cherries Red Army. We hope you are doing well, and this video is something a little bit different, trying to bring variety to the channel where we can. And we're going to check in with some fans and talk about the history of them supporting AFC Bournemouth. Where were they born? Where are they now? What's their favourite player? What's their favourite moment they could relive? And how are they finding watching the Cherries this season on the verge of promotion? We hope you enjoy this video. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel, and also hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments if you can relate to anything discussed in this video. And I am going to be joined now with Stephen Dyer and Ross Devonport. Enjoy.
My first guest on this new content where we dive into the Cherries fan base. We get to hear about their stories. We've got Bournemouth fans, Steve Dyer and Ross Devonport. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Kirk.
Great, Kirk. Thanks for having us.
No worries. And do you know what? Let's get stuck into it, because I'm really looking forward to listening to your stories. It's a bit different for the channel. And coming to you, Steve, come on then. Tell us about it. Where were you born? Where are you now? And how did you come to support AFC Bournemouth?
Yeah, well, I'm 61 years old. I was born in Parkstone on the Trinidad estate. My first game was I think it was in the 68-69 season when we were still Bournemouth and Boscombe Athletic Football Club. And I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. And my father worked on Saturdays and he wouldn't let me go to the match on Saturdays on my own or with some friends. So he used to take me to the midweek games, and it was definitely a midweek game at Dean Court under the lights. And he used to meet up with my uncle, and he used to stand in the newsstand in the middle, and I used to stand in the newsstand probably towards the south end, round about that quarter, because that was when it used to thin out, because most of the crowd used to congregate in the middle. So I used to go down the side. So that was good. And I think it was Stockport County. I'm pretty sure it was Stockport County, and we won 1-0.
Nice.
And I distinctly remember the red and white shirts with the BFC on the left-hand side on the chest. And they used to do the shirts. Poole Hospital used to have a fete, and they used to have a game of football, I think. And the shirts from the season used to go to the hospital players, I think. I seem to remember that happening. I don't know if they still do the hospital fates now or whatever, but yeah, that was my first trip to Dean Court. It was definitely the first 68-69 season. I was only allowed to go to midweek evening games with my dad.
You're not in Paul anymore, are you, Steve?
No,
you still follow the Cherries?
Yeah, what I did in the 70s, I went to Bournemouth College, did my apprenticeship in London. Then I travelled extensively through the 80s and ended up here in 1990 at Newcastle. And what had happened was I was working in a hotel in Sandbanks with my future wife, and Bournemouth drew Newcastle in the third or fourth round of the FA Cup. And we went, me and my girlfriend, who's a Geordie, we went to the match on the Saturday, and I think we drew 0-0 or 1-1. I can't remember. Anyway, the replay was a week or two later, and we weren't doing too much in the hotel trade down then because I'm in catering. So as she was coming from Newcastle, we decided to move up. And I thought, great, because I'll be able to go to St James's Park and see the replay. Well, we went to the replay, and the first one, if the Cherry fans remember, it was fogged off. We literally, the first 20 minutes or the first half, it was abandoned after fog. So they had to play. This is when Ozzy Ardiles was manager, I think. And I think we beat them in the replay, but I was ill in bed. I had flu. So we're staying at the mother-in-law's house. Yeah, so I listened to it in the radio. I mean, my father-in-law, who went to the match, he's a Geordie season ticket holder. God bless him, he's not here anymore. He popped his head round and said, "You've won on." I think he said, "You've won on penalties." And then I've been in Newcastle ever since. And then I think Newcastle sacked our dealers, and then Keegan came, and it's a bit like Eddie Howe coming to Bournemouth. The rest is history.
Yeah. And I'm sure your wife is currently happy as well with Eddie Howe being Newcastle manager. Now, coming to you, Ross, I know that we've interacted quite a bit through the last couple of years on Twitter, and I'm always interested to see what you've got to say. And you're a Bournemouth fan, and
Yep.
tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, and where you are now, and supporting Bournemouth.
So born and raised in which is unfortunately Watford country, but we won't talk about that. But my nan lived in Winton. She retired down there. Grew up in Liverpool, moved down to Winton and worked down there, and then retired there. My dad was born in Manchester, but he grew up in Bournemouth as well. Went to Poole Grammar, so I used to spend a lot of my school holidays, almost all my school holidays, in Bournemouth because it was cheap and easy to get to, and just stayed at nan's. So started going to games. I always had in my head that it was 1987, but when I look at the squads, I sort of remember the 88 team more. And I always thought the first game was against Bristol Rovers and we won 5-2. But when I look back at nowadays, you can look back at all the results from those years, and I don't see that result anywhere. So I'm not exactly sure which year it's either 87 or 88. And so obviously lived in Middlesex 92 and moved to Florida. So 30 years this year, and but I've been back, many times. Obviously, tried to come back I did come back last month. Tried to go to a game that was cancelled against Nottingham Forest. And also happened a few years ago. I tried to come back for a game against Man City in our first year in the Premier League in Manchester, and my flight got delayed coming from here to New York, and then didn't make a connection, so I didn't get to go to that game. My brother did. But I saw them here when they came over and toured in Philly the first year they were in the Premier League. And I've been back a few times since, and flew back for the League Two playoff final back in, 2003 from Tennessee. Was there for literally 24 hours and flew back. So always been a fan, and always been a lot easier to keep touch, especially when we're in the Premier League days, because we've got all the games live here. So it was great. So hoping we get back and I get to enjoy that again.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve. So you've told me a bit about your first game and how you got into Bournemouth, but what was your best era then supporting AFC Bournemouth? And tell us about maybe your favourite player that you did like when you were growing up.
Yeah, I thought about this, and I thought about the games I've seen live over the years. I miss the Harry Redknapp in the 80s. I miss the 90s, but like I say, every time I'm home, I always try and coincide it with a football match or a home game at least. When I worked in London, it was always going to the away games, Charlton, Orient, and places like that. But I thought I'd do me bet. The player that stands out in my mind was the late 70s, was Frank Barton, who was sort of like, he had a big afro haircut, and he was sort of playing in a relatively poor side, Bournemouth side at the time. But God, he was a strong, fit midfield player. And he stands out. And Nigel Spackman as well. But I could go through a load of names, but I think Frank Barton, thinking about it, he was fairly consistent in the 2 seasons. I think he was with us for about 2 years. He did go to Hereford after that, and then I think he retired. But he always put a shift in. Wasn't the most skillful of players, but he could read the game well, I found. And he had this great big afro haircut as well. So he was fit. He was a good player.
I had to look him up, obviously, Steve, because it is a little bit before my time. But do tell me, because having a look at Frank Barton, he looked like he did have a spell between 1976 and 1979. I think there was a stint for Hereford mixed in between that, but he had 66 appearances one season and 13 goals. So was he a bit box to box? What type of midfielder was he?
Yeah, he was. He could run up and down pretty well. Yeah, and he was strong. If I remember, he was quite a thick-skinned lad as well. Athletic. Yeah, he was good. He was good.
Great, absolutely great. Ross, coming to you then, thinking about the favourite era you enjoyed watching AFC Bournemouth outside of currently what we're watching, and sort of a player that excited you on match day.
I mean, I think my favourite time was the previous time we were in the Championship, obviously for a couple of years before we got promoted. But when I was growing up, when I first started becoming a fan, 87, 88, 89, Ian Bishop and Colin Clark, they weren't with us for long, but they were definitely a class above what we were used to. And so those two were my sort of first loves as Bournemouth players. Bishop, that silky smooth midfielder, Colin Clark just banging them in front of the goal. So those two for me in the late 80s, again, not for long, but they left a favourable impression with me, and I know a lot as well. Now, I see him again there at the time about Bournemouth. That was great.
Yeah, great players. Great players.
Great players. Thinking about Ian Bishop, he sort of reminds me of, I remember him more at Man City and West Ham. But like you said, he didn't play many appearances for Bournemouth and only 2 goals. Can you remember those goals, Ross, the 2 he scored?
No. Obviously, I didn't live in Bournemouth, so the only games I got to go to were the occasional ones. And we obviously weren't on TV then either. So, no. But then, again, when he moved to Miami to play for the Fusion, I actually ended up writing a story for the local paper about him coming over, because it was the first year of the Miami Fusion, and he was obviously a big name, and got to write. Just ended up writing a story and got it in the paper. So that was a great moment as well.
No, he was a great player. Coming back to you then, Steve, if you could relive a moment, Steve, and go back in time and think, I'd really like to re-see that AFC Bournemouth moment, does anything come to mind?
Yeah, the home game against Aston Villa. They went up and we stayed down. We beat them 3-0 at our place. And actually, I was going with a schoolmate at the time, because I was a little bit older from the days going with my dad. And my dad used to work on Saturdays. So we used to, I used to walk up to his house and then go up to Ashley Road and catch the coach to Dean Court. Used to come along Older Road there. And it was I remember the day, it was a real hot sunny day. And we normally used to go into the South End. But I think they locked the doors or something. And we ended up going round to the Brighton Beach End. And we managed to get in. And it was 20-odd thousand there, apparently. It was a full house. And we jumped over the barrier and just sat next to the touchline at the Brighton Beach End. And it was a really hot, sunny day. And the South End was in full voice. It was a bit like the Liverpool Cop when they had stand in there. It was fantastic. And we ran on the pitch at the end, as you do. And I remember, trying to get Tony Powell's shirt and everything like that, but he wouldn't have it. They just, in those days, they used to ran off. There's none of this clapping the crowd or anything. I used to meet up in the supporters club at the end, all come in for a drink. But it was a good 3-0, and it was a really hot, sunny day. I remember that one.
Can you remember the goal scorers, Steve? Just for my interest.
I was going to look them up. I couldn't remember. But the other one was the Auto Trophy at Wembley.
Yes.
On and off the pitch, it was with the buckets and everything. I think it was the buckets afterwards. Anyway, in the time before Maxime come in, we were always struggling for money. But to be 35,000 at Wembley, that was brilliant. It was apart from the result, of course, but
definitely,
yeah.
Now, talking about a moment that you want to try and relive, Ross, I know a moment you're not going to want to relive, and that was trying to go to watch Bournemouth Nottingham Forest this season when the Storm cancelled everything. You got a plane, you got over here, and then it was postponed 3 hours before kickoff. So that's definitely a moment you're not going to want to relive. But is there a Cherries game that you'd want to go back and see again if you could?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the League Two playoff final in 2003 when we took care of Lincoln 5-2, beating my brother. He'd driven up from, I think he was staying in London at the time, had driven over to Cardiff and met me there. And then that was a great day out, obviously, in the win and getting promoted. And then I think, not in person, I think the Bolton win in the season we got promoted, the clinch promotion. I was at a pub in Fort Lauderdale at lunchtime, and people were looking at me very strangely in the pub because there was cheers and tears, and it was a day that I'll never forget.
That was sort of the time that it sort of took off in America, wasn't it, Ross? That Bolton game, and then all the TV. America wanted a piece of Bournemouth, and we've inherited a great even bigger fan base now, would you say?
Oh yeah, no. Listen, the North American fan club we have on Facebook has, grown exponentially. It's obviously slowed down a little bit the last couple of years when we haven't been in the Premier League, but we picked up a ton of fans on the way. Obviously, our story helped, but the fact in such a local club in America, now lower league soccer is starting to pick up here now with USL Championship, USL League One, and even League Two, which is the amateur stuff. But there's teams building their own facilities, and teams are really falling in love with their local teams. So it's great to see.
Fantastic. Right, we've got to talk about Bournemouth this season. Then we've got to take this opportunity, Steve. I know that you interact a lot on Cherries Red Army. We really appreciate your input. I know you come on the live chat for the previews and your comments as well. And we've had a couple of tough years, shall we say. It didn't quite work out for Jason Tyndall when he went solo. Jonathan Woodgate came in and he sort of got every fan going again, but he couldn't sort of get Bournemouth over the line. And Scott Parker's come in with a project. We had a very, very good start. We've had some tough moments performance-wise, but we're in a very good place right now where you have to say, sort of have to be a catastrophe to lose it from here, wouldn't it? Where are you seeing Bournemouth this season?
Well, I think it's ours to throw away now. I think that result against Huddersfield nailed it for me. I think we're there. I've been telling everybody at work, because I work with the Mackens as well. And I'm pretty confident we'll get there now.
Are you enjoying what you've seen, or is it just about getting the points on the board,
No,
Steve?
I haven't been to any of the live games, obviously, but going through the podcasts and yourselves and everything and getting the reaction, especially the reaction and everything, I don't think it's been a great footballing season for one reason or another. I don't think the players have, whether they're, like we were talking 2 or 3 months ago, have they been coached out? Is it the way they're coaching? Is there too much emphasis on keeping fit and all this sort of stuff? I don't really understand it. I mean, there's a football there, kick it, so I don't know. Certainly not kick it sideways, kick it forward. I don't know. Like you say, it's, as we were talking before, the game's changed all the time now. We're not a Man City, we're not a Liverpool. Why do we try and play? Why do teams try and play like them all the time? I just don't see it. Bring back the days of 4-4-2.
But it was a lot better in that last game, as we're talking, against Huddersfield, Ross. And you probably get the advantage of watching most games for Bournemouth, I assume, with the TV rights or the streaming rights. You can confirm that for me. But Scott Parker, Ross, he'll say that his remit is to get promoted, and he's on track to get promoted.
Yeah, it's been a weird season. I don't subscribe to watching the games just because my Saturdays are sometimes taken up a lot by the kids, but I do subscribe to the audio, so I get Chris Temple and Willow wherever I am. But it's been a weird year because it is fun being in the Championship because you're in every game, and it's such a tough league, which we've seen has helped us because the teams behind us have stumbled. But I'd love to see us just to get back and for another few years and save up the money, get the training ground finished. If we do get it, I hate to say it is all about the money, but the Premier League is such a money grab that we need to get back there, I think, and secure our future, via the training ground and the stadium. And if we do end up going back down to the Championship again, we can come back up confident with producing young talent from that training ground and the academy, and then obviously getting that game day income as well. 3 or 4 times what we're getting right now. But it's been a strange year. Yeah, the games that I have watched have been frustrating at times, but it was a great result on Saturday. So I'm hoping that really is what pushes us to the promotion and clinching here in the next few weeks.
I think he is right though, Steve. I mean, I love the Championship. I get an extra 8 games on my season ticket, shall I say? And it's nice going into most fixtures in the season, knowing you got a really good chance of winning. But I think it does come down to money. For the security and future of the club that you've supported for an awful long time, we need that training ground to put us in a better position to bring better youthful players to the club. And we need to make sure we spend that money a little bit more wisely than maybe we did the first time.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and you, Ross. But fundamentally, we're a footballing club. We've always played good football. From the job when I started, from the Freddie Cox era, all the way, John Bond brought a new fresh impetus to the side. Then, all right, we had John Benson and Trevor Hartley and a few other players, managers. And I'm not I don't remember the Perry, the Brooks and Groves. That was just a flash in the pan, and that was pretty awful as well by all
I
accounts. I
remember
never
that
saw
one, to
those
be fair.
their teams.
I remember Groves.
Yeah. But when we went up with Eddie, you know, February, March, April, we're always looking over our shoulders. Oh, we're going to get the 40 points. Are we going to get for me personally, I would rather stay in the Championship. But I would rather, if we get promotion, when we get promotion to the Premiership this season, can we consolidate in the Premier League? You know, Burnley are struggling now. I thought Burnley were a good middle table team, but they seem to hit the rocks a little bit now. And we don't want to be a Norwich, keep going up and down. So I think if we get to the Premiership, yes, we'll probably need to spend some money. Is Maxim or whoever invests in the club going to do that? Do I want to see us have a load of money and go and buy a load of players? No, I don't. I'd rather use our academy and bring players through, which is a lot more harder. So we need a balance of buying some decent players. Regarding the ground, the council over the years have never helped us with the ground. Maybe they have in the last 10, 15 years because we've done well and we're getting promoted and it's good for the town. So I don't know there, but that seems to be hanging over us. The structure, Gene, are we renting it or whatever? That hasn't been. The training ground, apparently we've got something in a golf course in Blandford. Yes, I would like a training ground. I would like us to stay at Kings Park. I think I mentioned in the podcast, in the chat, there's always seems to be some empty seats in Dean Court, you know, little clusters of seats. Whether or not there's season ticket holders that can't go, that's fair enough on that match day. I'd like to see Dean Court, the corners filled in, and maybe do something with the Ted Mack stand. What I don't want to see is get into the Premiership. We have a couple of good seasons there. We buy a training ground and we buy a new ground. And then all of a sudden we're back in the Championship and struggling for money. I would like to see us buy a training ground outright and improve the stadium, be a bit frugal. That's the balance that the directors have got to do.
And
that's what I say. You know, we're talking about a legacy. Well, what legacy have we got from the Premiership when we were last there? The ground's still basically the same, and the training facilities are still there.
It's not ours,
and it's not ours.
Well,
Yeah, you've got to get this
heating and electronic
out,
turnstiles.
I think, whether or not, I don't know what the complications are there, but it's been hanging over us for seasons.
Those questions are most definitely going to come once that promotion hopefully is confirmed. That's off the pitch, Ross, but final thoughts on this season with Bournemouth on the pitch. If Scott Parker does it, and he should do it from here, is the future bright for Bournemouth, or is he going to have to adjust himself because he's had a spell in the Premier League with Fulham that didn't go to plan? So surely lessons have been learned.
You would hope so. I mean, I think we're a more talented team 1 through 11 than that Fulham team that got relegated, especially on our day. I'd love to see us be a Crystal Palace, you know, hang out in the top 10, and we've got a good core now, a much deeper squad than we had the last time we were up there, which, you know, we saw in the relegation season. That was what really killed us, was the injuries. We've had our fair share of injuries this year, obviously, but just the depth was, you know, a massive key. So I'm really hoping we can go up there and compete. We saw big victories over the years. I think Spurs is the only team we haven't beaten, right? Or Arsenal maybe, but you know, we've had some memorable victories. You know, Liverpool 4-3 is the one that always sticks in my mind. And those are sort of, even if you finish 15th to 16th, you live on those wins. And again, just building the coffers. I think we've got smart people in charge. Again, there were some decisions, as Steve mentioned, were legacy-wise that perhaps didn't go our way. We should have perhaps put more money in. But obviously, you know, when we went up, we didn't have a whole lot to begin with. And I'm sure there were people to pay off that we owed debt-wise, etc. So I think if we can go up for another 5 years or so and really invest the money into getting this club, you know, where it potentially can be stadium-wise, training ground-wise, academy-wise, and then even if we do go down to the Championship, we have that base to build off.
Definitely. I think it was very much go for players first time round and try and sort of consolidate ourselves in the Premier League. Maybe it's a happy medium now where we can maybe bring some more youthful talent through and spend more money on the infrastructure, as you say. Ross, it's been great to have you on this fan stories content, shall we say. It's lovely and sunny where you are. Did you confirm where you're talking from in this video?
I'm in Boca Raton, Florida at the moment. I live in Deerfield Beach, which is just one city over, and yeah, can't complain about the weather here. It does get a little warm in the summers, but you know, NBC's got a great deal where I can watch all the Premier League games, which I can't. Not everybody over there can do. So I'm very lucky in that regard, and hopefully, I'll get to watch plenty of red and black next year.
Fantastic. Steve, it's been great to meet you for the first time virtually, shall we say, on Cherries Red Army. You're coming to us from Newcastle, and I'm sure there's a few battles up there for you supporting the Cherries, and many more maybe to come next season if we're in the Premier League with Newcastle.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm not working offshore anywhere now. I've got a job here in Newcastle, so I'm off in the evenings. I work weekends, but I'm sure I can get the Saturday or Sunday or Monday or 12:30 or 8 o'clock or 5:30 kickoff, whatever it's going to be. So, yeah, it's good. It's good to be a Bournemouth fan. Let's put it this way: it is good to be a Bournemouth fan. And like to say, you know, people in Newcastle and all around, people know Bournemouth now. They know who the manager is, and they know one or two, if not all, the players. It's pretty good. It's good to be a Bournemouth fan. We can't complain of all the stuff that went on in the late 70s, early 80s, or even 80s, early 90s. So, you know, it's happy days to be a Bournemouth fan wherever you are. And yeah, let's get to the Premiership.
Thanks for your time, guys. Really appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody. And everybody does a good job on all the podcasts across, shall I say it, Kirk Back of the Net and Cherries Red Army.
Absolutely.
Doing a great job.
We're one family. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Got a lot of time for Back of the Net and Sam Davis and all the team over there as well. So that's absolutely spot on. Thank you to checking out this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you remember some of those moments that Steve and Ross have mentioned, tell us your memories of supporting Bournemouth. We're hoping to bring more of these videos throughout pre-season, definitely when we get gaps in the season. Make sure you subscribe, like, and we hope you've enjoyed this video. But from me, Steve and Ross, we'll see you soon. Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries.